Is there discussion? Gentleman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if the sponsor would yield to a few questions. I didn't want to ask you on your time because you traditionally not wanted to burn your time with my questions, but would the sponsor be willing to answer a few questions?
I probably will be able to.
Okay, I'll take them as a yes. Why the threshold limit of $10 billion? How did you originate $10 billion?
That is a number as 1.5 is. Obviously, there was some discussion, but it's one that really does catch most of the smaller banks. It's not most of the market share, but it is most of the number of banks, and particularly smaller banks, community banks. Again, it's more than 98% of banks will be or have assets of less than $10 billion. More than 98% of credit unions have assets of less than $1.5 billion. It's obviously not going to be a very precise measure, but it's all but about 110 or 15 banks and all but about 82 credit unions. And it's a section of the market of the financial industry that have not been the worst actors. For them, an examination is not something that happens every day. When the examiner comes to their bank, it is pretty disruptive. Other bigger banks are used to having examiners camped out. In fact, the biggest 20 banks have full-time examiners at their bank exclusively. So that's the origin of the $10 billion and the $1.5 billion thresholds.
Okay. Now, in this, I know with other legislation we've dealt with, there's this concern about smaller actors and smaller players that have been a real problem in this. I know there's been a lot of discussion, for instance, on mortgage brokers that they've, been a contributing factor, and they're small. Mm-hmm. In essence, isn't this amendment counter to what you've been saying on previous size issues for these institutions?
Well, as I said, smaller banks and smaller credit unions have not been without sin, but they have not been the worst actors either. They have not, generally have not abused consumers in the way that the bigger banks did. They weren't responsible for the credit card abuses. The credit card market is very concentrated in a very small number of banks. And if a small bank is a bad actor, the CFPA can do something about it. First of all, we assume that the safety and soundness regulator will do something about it. The CFPA will still set the rules that will apply to everybody, but the people who actually show up at the bank or at the credit union will be the examiners from the safety and soundness regulator, and CFPA can have somebody part of that, a CFPA employee part of their team if they want to. They can tell the examiners from the safety and soundness regulator what they want to find out, what documents to get, what to look into, and bring it back to them so they can know what's going on. And if the CFPA sees a violation and the safety and soundness examiner hasn't brought an enforcement action, after 120 days, the CFPA can bring the enforcement action, and the CFPA can displace the safety and soundness regulator if the safety and soundness regulator isn't doing their job with respect to a given institution, if that given institution is violating
reclaiming
law.
my time.
Thought you wanted answers.
Yeah, but I don't. You weren't answering my question. That's why I'm reclaiming my time. My question is about. So, in essence, it's exempting 98% of the institutions. Is that
they will still get examined, and they will still get examined with respect to consumer protection laws. They will be examined principally by their safety and soundness regulator, with involvement of the CFPA.
Reclaiming my time. So, as they currently are being examined by their current regulators, is that true?
The current regulator with the CFPA, including someone from the CFPA as part of the team, if they so decide, and as part of they have a full say in what information the examiners need to bring back from the examination.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
I ask you to understand the gentleman from North Carolina get an additional minute, or a minute and a half left.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so I'm just trying to understand. Then, does the gentleman support the CFPA generally?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So, but you want to exempt 98% of the institutions?
They're not exempt. The examination and enforcement will be handled principally by their existing regulator. If the existing their existing regulator will be given the task of enforcing, of investigating violations, of examining for compliance with consumer protection laws at the direction or with the participation of CFPA. And if they violate it, if an institution violates those laws, the safety and soundness regulator will have the first crack at enforcement. If they don't do it,
Okay.
the CFPA
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
They aren't exempted. They are still.
It's the gentleman from North Carolina's time.
Okay. And I appreciate the gentleman answering. I do. And, you know, my question is, in essence, can't we just completely change the manager's amendment that we're working under here? Can we just simply replace the whole lot of CFPA and just give consumer protection regulation specifically to the current regulators that these institutions report to?
Well,
The time has expired, the additional time.